Welcome to the Refurbishment Mastery podcast with me, Martin Rapley. If you're a property investor who is worried about paying too much for your next property, concerned that you don't know how to manage a refurb, or scared that you will be ripped off by a builder, then this is for you. In this podcast, I share over 30 years of experience of managing refurbishments and conversions to help you make more profit, save your time, and ultimately enjoy the process. On with the podcast. Have you ever had a builder who looked brilliant on day one, and then by week 3 or 4, you're starting to have second thoughts? I can definitely resonate with that. Fortunately, most of the time, back a long time ago in my experience, because I've become more aware of what I'm looking out for. But ultimately, if your builder fails, it's going to lead you to cost overruns, program slippage, quality problems, and just generally you're going to be in some kind of dispute, which is never, ever a good thing. In this episode, I'm going to talk you through some of the due diligence that I do when prior to deciding which contractor I actually want to engage. And I think to some extent, this has almost got easier over the years, and you'll hear that as I get through this episode. But I think it's also more important than it ever was. I think, unfortunately, there's a number of builders out there now that are not the builders you want to be working with. And back in the day, I think builders, as I think a lot of people were a lot more diligent in the first place. But realistically, due diligence is what is the research, what is the background checks, what are you doing to ensure that the builder that you're thinking is right for your project and you're going to engage for your project is actually the right builder for you. And remember, this isn't do they seem nice? It's not that kind of thing. And even if they came recommended from someone else, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are that they are going to be right for you. And realistically, I think there's 5 areas that we should be focusing on when we're actually considering a contractor. Number 1 is, can they actually do the work? So do they have the right skills, the right experience to do the work? Number 2 is, do they have the capacity? There's some brilliant builders out there, but they're so busy that we may not be able to engage them on our projects. Number 3 is, are they likely to be reliable? And of course, likely is that slightly subjective word. And that's where a little bit more of it actually goes with gut feel than anything else. Number 4, excuse me, number 4 is their proposal credible? There's a little bit more to this than just seeing the whites of their eyes and seeing their paperwork and things like that. And then number 5 is, are they actually legitimate? Are they who they say they are? And does the business and the owner have some credibility in their own right? So I'll take you through those 5 elements now and give you some more things to think about here. So the first thing is, can they do the work? The thing we don't want to be doing is wasting our time talking to or even meeting on site builders that are not able to do the work. So you can do some research and some early due diligence into the builders before you even meet them. Sometimes this may be remotely, maybe by looking at their website. Sometimes it may be via telephone calls, emails, possibly WhatsApp messages, but perhaps a little bit less likely for that. Because there are some brilliant builders out there that are ideal, but might not be ideal for your kind of project at your time. And this goes back to one of the mistakes that I see a lot of property investors making is that they don't actually talk to enough builders in the first place. And you'll have heard me say before, I've talked about this on other podcasts, that if you want to get four prices for your project, you've probably got to invite six builders to view the project, and you probably got to talk to 10 or 12 to find those six from, because some of them are too busy, some of them don't work in your area, some don't do your start type of work, some don't do your size of work. So we've already started to filter very, very early on, so that by the time we're meeting builders, we're actually starting to think that we are engaging with already, hopefully, at least six that we genuinely believe have got some chance of success. So don't waste your time looking at or trying to track down the wrong builders for you. So do they do your kind of work? Are they based in your area? Do they work in your area on a regular basis? What kind of setup have they got? And are they right for the size of your project? And you can find all of this out just by asking some, fairly direct questions. What do you normally do? Where do you normally work? What's your ideal project? How many people do you employ? How many subcontractors do you bring in? What about the specialist works? How do you deal with that? Just ask them some questions, and you'll immediately start to eliminate some of the wrong builders, the builders that are not right for us. So this is the key thing to get over here, guys, is the due diligence starts before you even meet some of these builders. And unfortunately, what I find is a lot of people I talk to is they've got some prices from builders, they're about to engage with the builders, and they're just thinking about doing some due diligence at that point. That is a little bit too late. You may well have found you've already wasted some of your time. Be careful of builders that say, we can start next Monday. That's never a good sign. Be careful of builders that just say, oh, we'll make a start and we'll sort the price out as we go along. Or, yeah, I haven't got time to view it, but I can get a team there next week. They're all negatives. And ultimately, they're also the same builders that won't put things in writing later on. So they're the red flags. We don't want to be working with those kinds of builders, but we do want to be doing some initial research, some initial due diligence before actually meeting any of the builders. Now, as we go further down the line, we are, of course, at some point going to be meeting the builders. And I would recommend as best you can that you meet the builders that are pricing your project. You might say you're out of the geographic area and it's not convenient, but with that statement, you are taking on more risk, because you will be surprised how many times you meet a builder and you know immediately whether they are perhaps not the right one for you, or perhaps they are a better fit for you. But obviously, if you're out of the area and you engage someone else to do it, you're now relying on their feelings and their gut feeling. And of course, it may not be them that are directly involved with working with them. When you actually meet builders at the property, you don't need to spend hours talking to them. You can pretty much expect most builders to be walking around a family house refurbishment conversion type project. Most of them will be in and out in less than an hour. I would typically arrange builders to arrive 1 hour apart. It won't always go to plan. Don't worry too much about that. Do your best. And most of them will be in and out within 30 to 40 minutes or so. A few of them will be there longer, and a few will be in and out in 10 minutes, which again is a little bit of another thing that could just give you some concerns. When you meet the builders at your property, one of the key checks on whether they're going to be good is whether they've got a basic knowledge of the scheme. Because you should have already sent them the schedule of works and any drawings that are appropriate, I expect my builders to turn up and at least have an overview. Oh, we're converting this house into a 6-bedroom HMO, including a loft conversion. or we're building an extension on the back and we're doing, some other, putting some extra en suites in or something like that. They don't need to know absolutely everything, but a general overview is an indication that they have read what you sent them in the first place, which means that the very nature that they've turned up, they are already through that first thing. They've already realized that, yes, this is exactly the right kind of project for me. I've been through it all. I understand it all, and I'm now making a trip to the property. Now, with depending on the amount of detail you've got in your schedule of works and the amount of detail on the drawings, in most cases, 70% of that project can be priced without even viewing a property, and sometimes even more. So if you've got lots of detail and the quality is good, they're not really coming to your project to understand the nitty gritty. That you've already specified that you've got to need a new kitchen, you've included a quote, there's a drawing that shows how it all sets out. They don't need to come to the property to actually understand anything about that kitchen at all. What they're looking for at the property are elements of the work that are not 100% clear from your schedule of works. And that's no disrespect on your schedule of works, because you may have put in your schedule of works, hack off all of the plaster. It's only when they come to site can they understand how easy it is to take that plaster off. Is it going to fall off because, let's say, you've had water problems with the property and a lot of it's falling off? Or is it actually fairly well stuck to the wall, fixed to the wall? And is it going to take them a little bit longer? You might also have some items in there that are you talk about modifying something, modify the partition to make the bathroom fit or something like that, which may not be totally clear. But when you stand on site and actually look at it, it's like, oh yeah, I can see that what's there. We need to get rid of that cupboard and we move that wall over a little bit. So there's always going to be some things that they need to see on site. This isn't the case with new build, of course, but with refurbishment and conversion, there's always things for them to look at on site. So realistically, that's what they're actually coming to look at. They're not coming really to look at the big picture items, because they can price all of that from the information you've sent them in advance. What they will do when they come, the good builders, and again, this is all part of your due diligence, they will measure things where appropriate. If things aren't clear from the drawings, and they want to, or they need to get some quantities for some reason, then they'll measure things. They may dig a little bit deeper. They might, if it's possible, they might pull up some carpet, see what's underneath there. They might try and knock off a little bit of plaster just to see how easily that comes off. They may pull some wallpaper off, that with your permission, of course, and they may probe a little bit deeper into the property to understand what they're, what they've got to do. They may well talk to you about your aspirations for the property, and they might want a little bit of clarity as to what you're doing with it at the end. Tell that's not a problem at all. Tell them I'm converting it into an HMO. We're going to rent it out to the local homeless charity, and they're expecting to take it over in 5 months' time. Tell them those kind of targets that you've got, and get the builders on board with those things. And then some builders will take photos of some elements of the work, perhaps those things that weren't totally clear from the drawings or your schedule of works. They may take some photos of those just so that they can refer back to them at a later date when they come to price it. And they should take, that normally builders would rather take a photo than write notes, but some will write notes about those specifics. And then they're also going to have a look at things that aren't directly related to the building work, but are related to the delivery of the building work. For instance, what else is in the vicinity of your project? What's the access like to your project? Where are they going to park their van? Where are they going to put a skip? Are the neighbours likely to cause them some trouble? Are there issues relating to parking restrictions, working hours? Is there a narrow track to get access to your property that means that things have to come in a smaller vehicle? If there's an extension to go on the back of the property, is there an easy way to get into the rear garden? If they can get a little digging machine in there, that's going to reflect on the price and make it cheaper than if they've got to dig it by hand because there's no way in. So they're going to be looking at these other things as well. Some of these they will have looked at just the very nature of turning up. Yeah, if a builder turns up and can't park his car easily to view your project, you know that that is going to be reflected back into the costings for your project later on. And there's not a lot you can do about it. But when you go and view properties and you're thinking about buying a property that needs refurbishing, you should also be looking at with the same eyes as to what might have an effect later on down the line. Red flags, things you don't want to hear or see. Any builder that says they want to come back next week with another tradesman suggests that they didn't actually understand the scheme properly in the first place. When they say, I'd like to come back next week with my electrician, I would immediately say to them, oh, were you surprised there was some electrical work in this? I'm surprised you didn't bring the electrician now. And sometimes, if I can't get back next week, that's the end of that builder's interest in the project. They've wasted their time. They've wasted my time. So builders that don't know the project want to come back with someone else is a bit of a red flag. Just jumping in to make sure that you've got everything you need. Now, in a number of these podcasts, you'll have heard me talk about other property investors that I'm currently working with or have worked with in the past. And so I wanted to ensure that you can find out how you can actually work with me. And the best place to start with that is my website, www.refurbishmentmastery.com. On there, you'll find details of training courses that I run. You'll find details about my community and also how you can work with me on a one-to-one basis when you are progressed far enough down the line. And then if you're not really sure what's right for you and how we can work together, then there's a button at the top. Just hit the button at the top that says book a call. It's absolutely free. It will take you to my diary, find a slot, and we'll be able to talk in the next couple of weeks. Remember, the website is refurbishmentmastery.com. I really look forward to helping you with a successful delivery of all of your projects. Now back to the podcast. Sometimes builders that talk too much can be a red flag as well. Some builders will almost start the sales patter immediately. Don't be swallowed up in the sales patter. And sometimes builders that talk too much are doing that because they actually don't fully understand what they're doing. And they're talking and they're asking you questions as a cover up for the fact that they don't really understand the scheme or they are out of their depth with the scheme. So be careful in that. And you may want to also take a note of builders who miss appointments. They will need a bit of a chase up normally, so give them a bit of flexibility. But if a builder misses a couple of appointments, that's probably a reason not to carry on working with that builder. So remember here, you're meeting them face to face. You're not looking for a nice man. You're looking for a competent builder that can carry out the work for you. So we've now met our builder, and our builder has given us a quotation or a proposal of some description. And again, we can start doing some due diligence at this point as well. We can look at how clear the pricing is. Where there might be some exclusions, there might be some assumptions in there, but if they're clearly noted and it's all transparent, that is a really, really good thing. You really want to, well, it's kind of essential to have a breakdown of that price. If there's no breakdown, ask them for the breakdown. If the breakdown doesn't come, they're off the list as far as I'm concerned. They're no use to us. If things are labeled, if they've got some uncertainties, I've talked about exclusions, assumptions, they might have used provisional sums. I've talked about those on previous podcasts. If they're all clear and transparent, that's not a problem at all. But if things are woolly and cloudy, that doesn't bode quite so well. If every price is to the nearest £500, that also is a little bit of a red flag for me as well, because that suggests that they've just thrown money at what they think needs doing, and they may not have assessed it particularly well. And then some of the better builders will give you an idea of the program, lead times, and things like that. On smaller projects, that's not always going to be forthcoming straight away. But again, it's a good thing to see. And again, if you can't get that information from builders, it could be a reason to eliminate those builders from your ongoing checks. So when you're looking at their prices, you want to, if you've got on the basis that you've got a breakdown, you're looking for things that are missing, things that don't feel right, things that don't compare with other builders. If a builder is suspiciously cheap on the whole project, that could be something that needs digging into. If a builder's suspiciously cheap on one element, maybe they've misunderstood it. So you can ask questions here, and you can do some more research here. So don't just be selecting the cheapest builder whose price turns up, or the first builder that got their price in, or anything like that. Go through and spend a bit of time looking for builders that are being over smart. And the builder that's being over smart is very little breakdown, lots of lump sums, lots of words, lots of things added, annotations added. May not be a real problem, but you want to get to the bottom of all of them. So we've whittled it down again, and we've got one or two builders left based on price and based on what they presented, and they've got through all of our previous checks. And we're now thinking that we might take them forward a little bit further. And the next thing is, we ideally, in fact, these points 4 and 5 here, we could switch them around. I tend to do 5 before 4, but they're two slightly different things. So the first thing we can do is we can double check previous projects and previous clients they've worked for and see what the feedback is. Effectively, we are taking some references. So ask your builders for references, and this might be a surprise for you, follow them through. You'd be surprised how many people ask for references and don't actually follow them through. The best 2 references you can get, number 1, is from a consultant. If you can get a reference from an architect, maybe a project manager, maybe a quantity surveyor, then the thing about getting references from those consultants is they know a good builder from a bad builder. They've worked with hundreds of builders, if not more than that, so they know a good one from a bad one. If you're getting a reference from the nice little lady round the corner who's never worked with more than one builder, is not a good benchmark, because she will say, oh, he was a really nice man, he complimented me on my cakes that I made him, without having any knowledge as to whether she paid a fair price, whether he's done a good quality project, or any number of other things. So if you can get a reference from a consultant, that's worth a huge amount to you. And then as a second reference, if it's possible, try and view a completed project with the builder. Ideally, something that was finished in the last kind of 2 to 6 months or so. So you want a project to settle down, and then you want to go and have a look at this project. And if you can meet the owner of the property as well, that's a bonus. But you can ask the owner of the property, whether they finished on time, how they dealt with variations and extras, what the communication was like. Would you use them again? And you've got a little bit of an overview. But you can also look at the quality of the work. And remember, you are assessing the quality of the work. You are not assessing the choices that the homeowner or the property owner has made. So you're not deciding whether you like their choice of kitchen, whether you would have laid the kitchen out differently, whether you would have painted the walls a different color, or anything like that. All you are doing is assessing whether the paint that is on the wall has been put on properly. It's got a good coverage. It's cut in neatly to the ceilings. That means that the wall paint doesn't splurge onto the ceiling or vice versa. But the kitchen, it doesn't matter whether you like the kitchen or not, is it installed nicely? Is the tiling nice and smart? So you're looking for quality of work, and whatever you do not criticize someone else's house because that's their own choice. If they want everything in black, with silver sequins, that's entirely up to them. If that's their style, that's not what you're assessing. You're assessing the quality of the work that the builder has done. And actually, if the builder has followed what was specified, then it shouldn't matter to the builder ever whether there's some things there that he wouldn't do in his own properties. So look at the quality, and you've now got two people, a consultant and a real life project that again will help you do your due diligence. And I have been to see properties and projects which have been offered to me as potentially the best the builder can offer. And at that point, decided they're not the builder to proceed with because I'm not happy with the quality of their work. So these are all these checks you can do. And this is why you need so many builders in the first place. And then the final check to do is just are the builder, what's the commercial setup, the builder, some basic compliance type stuff, which is the bit that has now become considerably easier than it used to be 20 years ago. So, as an absolute minimum, a real simple thing you can do is go into the company's house website and look for the company in there. Most builders now are trading as limited companies. A few of them aren't, but most of them are now. Have a look about that company. How long have they been trading? If you're not sure about an answer, you can go back to the builder and get some clarity. Oh, I notice you've only been trading 3 months. What happened prior to that? Why did you set up your own business? You can ask questions to get some comfort that things are right. So have a look on Companies House. It's really interesting what you can get from Companies House. How long have they been trading? What is the business set up to do? Have a look at the SIC code, Standard Index Classification Code. It will be on the Companies House website. See that they are described as a builder of some description. There's a number of different codes for slightly different kinds of building, but as long as they are set up as a builder, that's a good thing. I've found things like estate agents in there. So there's a surprise. So the builder is really good at being an estate agent, but now he wants to be a builder and he's still registered as an estate agent. So that would be a red flag for me. Have a look at check the directors of the business. It may be that you're talking to one of the directors of the business. It may be that there's other directors of the business. Don't be at all surprised if one of the other directors is actually the builder's wife. That wouldn't be uncommon. Sometimes there's a partnership. Sometimes there's two of them, and you may only have met one. Ask what the other one does. Ask how they work together. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, he was an old partner, and he's not involved any longer. I just use him for some advice." You might get a bit of an idea because you will find the directors' dates of birth, or at least month and year of birth, on companies' details. So you'll see how old they are, and maybe the other partner is a very different age, and yeah, they work in that way. But it leads you to ask some questions. And the other thing you want to do is when you find the directors' names, click on the directors' names and see what other businesses they've been involved with. If they've been involved with multiple businesses, that again can be a red flag. Businesses that all seem to have nearly the same name is a typical clue that they get in financial difficulties. They wind a company up and they start up a new company before they get struck off. That is another red flag, and you probably want to be avoiding that. And then when you've got the company details, but more so the director's details, put those details into Google. Just Google the company, Google the directors' names, put those directors' names into social media, and just see what comes out. I have Googled names before and found at that point that I don't want to work with them. Normally, some kind of previous criminal issues or some previous issues relating to management of companies are the reason that I've decided not to engage them at that point. It's not a bad thing to find out on social media that weekend they spend their time training the local football club or something like that. That's good stuff. But you might find things that they do at the weekend that you don't like. And again, that's another reason not to work with the builders. And then very finally, you want to be this is a little bit off topic, but it's all part of the checks really, is you want to know that you can agree terms and conditions with your builder. If the builder is forcing you into terms and conditions that you're not happy with, then again, that's another reason to not work with with that particular builder. And so the key thing here is that we are looking really to eliminate the wrong builders all the way through our process. And so due diligence on a builder is not something that starts right at the end. It's something that started from the beginning. And we are whittling our builders down to a point where we've got the best builder for our project at the time we want to start. So we're pre-screening before we even meet them. We're screening them again at a site meeting when they're viewing the property to price it. We're doing some more research and checks when they quote. We're then asking them for proof that they can deliver in as far as references and checking again. And then finally, we're checking the commercial side of things. Are they legitimate? Are they who they say they're going to be? So with those 5 checkpoints, you should be in a position where you are engaged. You've got well over 90% chance of successfully selecting the right builder for your particular project. The key thing to take away from this is if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut, be brave, and move on from that particular contractor. Don't try and pigeonhole the wrong contractor into your project. And ultimately, this all comes back to ensuring that you've got enough builders in the pipeline in the first place so that you can afford to be critical and get the right builder than being forced to work with the only builder who's actually managed to give you a quote for the job. Even though you hate him and you think he's a bit of a dodgy builder, you're using him because you think you need to save time. Be brave, walk away from the wrong builders. Hopefully, some good advice in there that will help you have a better relationship with your builders. If you've got a good relationship with your builders, you will enjoy the process. If any problems come to light, they'll be that much easier to resolve. And ultimately, you may have found a builder that next time round you negotiate prices with rather than tendering, which saves you some time and you've got more certainty going forwards. It's all about building relationships. So with that, wrapping up, thanks very much for listening, and I'll catch up with you on another episode very soon.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Please do like, share, and leave a comment where you can. If you need any guidance or advice with anything to do with your refurbishments or conversions, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can book a free call with me by clicking on the link at the top of my website, refurbishmentmastery.com. There's other ways you can contact me in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.